Hello, everyone. Are we ready to go ahead and begin? Hello, everyone. We're going to do this. Okay. I got everybody's full attention. That's great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Colorado School for the Deaf and Blind for the Superintendent Search. My name is Shane Feldman. This is my sign name, S on a chin. I'm the CEO of Innovate, and we have a contract with the CSDB board to help in the search for the new superintendent. In the process, I have met so many people within the CSDB community. And what a wonderful, wonderful school. What a wonderful community that we have here that everybody cherishes and values. And I'm honored to be a part of the search and to be here this afternoon. We have 3 outstanding candidates this afternoon with us here today. Janet Dignan, Dr. Janet Dickinson, Chris Cafton, and Tara Spangler. It's been a great personal sacrifice for them to challenge, and this has not been easy. So they are here today to show you what they have to offer the school. Their support with leadership. I want you to keep that in the back of your mind too. That they love and cherish the children that are here, and they want to listen to what you have to say and the vision that we have for the kids here at CSDB. So it's quite a decision we have ahead of us. All through the search process, it's been very important to have community involvement. And now the time has come to understand how that community involvement what it has looked like, and to look at that perspective and to look back at the process. We had a focus group who were very, very highly involved. We met with the focus groups. I'm sure that you all remember that, and the results was that leadership and the help that we needed in the search for the superintendent. The community gave us what we wanted to give back to the students, the teachers, the alumni, and the community as a whole to develop the leadership that we're looking for. So I'd like to review So we value the collaboration and the involvement. First of all, we want to commit to anti-ableism. We want to commit to academic excellence, to ensure relevance and innovation, and be a visible leader in our search for the next superintendent. So this is the final portion of this search. There will be a survey on the internet, and we ask on the CSDB website, and we ask that you will see the picture of the candidate, of Tara Spangler. It will be interpreted into American Sign Language, as well as written English. And Chris Cafton will have the same setup. So I ask that after this, you put your thoughts together And when we've received all of the community feedback, the board will take a look and take everything into consideration. And everything will be handed off to the board. Everything will be read. And Cora, this is all Cora, so public record. We wanted to go back and talk about Cora, C-O-R-A. So all of you can absolutely share your information, your feedback, and your comments. But I want you to know that because of Cora, every comment you type, like on a separate link, everything that you put in as a feedback is subject to open records law. Anyone will be able to request to see all of those. So anything you put in will be able to be read. It is on a Google form and it will be submitted. It's both signed and in English as well. Once you give it to the board, they are going to read through all of those. And through Cora, anybody could read what is written as is. So everybody has that understanding that it's all open if that request is made. You all will also be included. Next Monday, there is a meeting. There will be deliberation. January 29th, Monday, there is a time we've set aside for public comment. And people have been asking how many people there will be for public comment. This again goes back to a form on the website, csdb.org. We will have a link there. So the email will go out to CSDB employees and there will be something sent out to the community as well this Friday morning. You have to, is the deadline to have all of those to sign up for public comment. If you do want to sign up for that, please go ahead and go to that link. It'll be on the website. Go to that form. It'll say public comment, sign up for that. There is that time allotted on Monday during the board meeting. And I just want to clarify, okay, everybody good so far? You're with me? Okay, I am going to go ahead and turn it over and start our presentations. We are going to ask each candidate to share their topic, to introduce themselves, just so the community members are aware of who you are, and also to explain the vision of the school and what that looks like, and leadership as well. When one comes up to the stage, the other two finalists are going to lead. After the presentation, we will have a Q&A session and then a short break, and then we'll switch to the second and the third finalist. We did send out a request for all of the questions. We did get 43 in total. There's only 15 minutes after the presentation is over. It's impossible for us to include all 43 questions. Sorry about that. We did select the questions that we are going to ask. All of the questions were wonderful. It was really hard to choose just 8 of those. It was really difficult. So thank you all for that. We did pick 8 questions, and we're going to go ahead and ask those 8 questions during that Q&A time. Then the finalist will go ahead and leave, and then we'll have a short break, and the next finalist will come up. Are we ready for the first finalist presentation? Everybody ready? All right. So yes, the first finalist is Tara Spangler. Please make your way to the stage.
Can I go ahead and display the PowerPoint, Shane? Testing, 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 testing.
This is the audio describer. Tara Spangler is approaching the stage.
Testing, testing, testing. Hit the button. Okay.
This is the audio describer. Tara Spangler is on the stage, waiting to queue up the PowerPoint presentation.
Sorry, just one moment and we'll get the PowerPoint open.
First slide. Text.
Yes, technical difficulties, always.
Superintendent Finalist Forum. On the right of the slide is the CSDB 150-year anniversary logo. And if we
Okay, thank you for your patience. Minor technical difficulties, it seemed. Good afternoon, everyone. I am thrilled to be here. Such an honor to be part of this superintendent search and to become a finalist. I really appreciate this opportunity to share with you all who I am, about myself, and my vision and goals moving forward for Unity at CSDB. I'm Tara Spangler. Okay. I'll just start with a little bit about my family. Because again, that's who I am. This first picture here is my dog. His name is Ozzy. Next week, he'll be 1. This is my first pet in quite a while. Originally, I was unsure, and then I just absolutely fell in love with him. So this is my dog, Ozzy. And then a picture to the left of my dog is the 4 of us in my family. Well, let's see. On the right is my stepson, Sam. He's a senior in high school. Max is 20. And then my husband, Wayne, and then myself, I'm in that picture as well, obviously. I was born and raised in a very small town in Iowa. When I say small, I mean small, like 400 people small. Rural area. So I was born and raised there. My grandparents were there. They're farmers. My dad is a farmer. My siblings stayed. My sister stayed there, got married, born and raised again in this small town in Iowa. Small town life really taught me the value of hard work and how important it is to come together as a community and have that unity. Everybody knows everyone. It was a little bit, we knew a little bit too much about each other. But again, it really taught me a lot of those values and hard work and that real sense of unity. Growing up, I loved golf. Well, I still love golf. I love to golf. And I also love to watch college football. Do any of you love college football? Anybody, any college football fans? All right, I see a few hands. Any of you enjoy watching the Big Ten? Yeah, those football teams? Okay, so let me just let you know, for those of you who know and watch the Big Ten, you know there's a situation this year that was very specific to one football game. And I'll tell you right now, it was not a fair catch. It was not a fair catch. Okay, so anybody who knows football knows that phrase. And the football player at that time, there was a situation, that he grew up 20 minutes, from my hometown. And my college roommate is his aunt. And yeah, so anyway, want to emphasize fair catch. Fun fact there for you. So I will briefly share my work experience. I moved to Colorado in 2001. I started working in District 49 as an itinerant teacher. And then I went to a center-based program to teach, elementary specifically. At the same time, I was waiting and watching CSDB to see if there was any positions that opened for the CSDB elementary department. Finally, in 2006, there was a position that was open. I applied, I got the job, went on from there. I started as an elementary teacher, and this was for the deaf, so I'm a teacher of the deaf. After that, I had a variety of different roles to include curriculum assessment instructor and coordinator, principal of the Family Center, Early Ed Center, that program, director of curriculum and assessment and instruction, and then my current role as interim superintendent. All four of these, during that time, I worked with both deaf and the blind schools.
Next slide.
Since then, since I've been an administrator, included in administration, there's many conferences and organizations that I've been a part of. 2021, I participated in CEASD. That is the Leadership Academy program. I would go to CEASD conferences where there would be staff who taught students that are blind. And then I would go to the CSA, also specific to students who are blind. And then the Council Cosby.
New slide, vision for unity at CSDB.
My topic for this presentation this evening for tonight is about unity here at CSDB.
Slide, Bulldog Strong
Before I
Together.
start and talk about what my vision is for the future of CSDB, I want to just briefly summarize some of the things that are already been set in place and are already starting. We are not starting from scratch. I've already set up a good, strong foundation already, and I will show you some of those examples included in that foundation.
Bullet point.
Our deaf advisory, our blind advisory committees, they collaborated to develop a campus-wide communication norm. Our equity committee,
Second bullet point.
we have representation from the deaf school, the blind school, student services, our media team, all different departments come together. And they worked on finding a specific training to provide related to equity. Our Vibes committee
Vibes is the third bullet point.
has representatives from all different departments here, every single department here on campus. They meet every 2 weeks, and they talk about how they can elevate campus morale. They talk about how they can get direct feedback from staff on things that need to be fixed. There's a collaboration with all the different departments throughout campus. That committee is peer-to-peer. Staff, it's a staff organization. They facilitate that, where they try, again, to elevate, raise that morale here on campus. And they add things for us to do every month. They help with the social media, put things on our website. They did start Employee of the Month, again, to really elevate and raise morale here on campus.
Fourth bullet point.
Another committee that meets every month. The full campus comes together monthly, for different events that they come up with and provide. White Cane Day is an event that's annual, and we've been doing this for as long as I've been here. For the first time this past year, our whole deaf school went to support our students who are blind over downtown for White Cane Day. And it was an incredible event. After that, a staff member who's worked here for, I want to say 26, 27, 28 years, made the comment that in all my years here, that 28 years, I have never gone to that event, White Cane Day, and how amazing it was for her to see all of our deaf staff and students support our staff over in the blind school as well as students. And it was an incredible day and experience for her. As I mentioned, as far as accessibility, I would like to mention our playground. We do have a design team. Again, representation from both the deaf school and the blind school, student services, variety of representatives across campus came together to try to figure out how to design a new playground, a truly accessible playground for all. It is really cool to see some of the ideas about how we're able to make the best accessible for both people who are blind, all staff, and vice versa. So we are just now scratching the surface on developing. So we have a lot of different things that we've done, gotten people together to work on that design.
Slide change. Bulldogs United Together.
My vision, as it's been for a really long time, is Bulldogs Strong Together. What I'm thinking for next year of changing that just a little bit to Bulldogs United Together. As I mentioned, we've already had some small partnerships, some meetings. We have those things going on in those examples I just shared, but there is a lot more we want to do moving forward. There's a lot of work to be done. So I do envision to get to those goals and really make them happen, we need to be united together. And how we do that, my ultimate goal is to get to that unified campus. We all need to become allies for each other.
An ally is any person who supports, empowers, or stands up for another person or a group of people.
An ally means any person who supports, empowers, or stands up for another person. And my dream, my ultimate dream, is to see people who are deaf standing up for people who are blind, and people who are blind standing up for people who are deaf. We all need to become allies for each other. And I'd like to talk about the 4 things I think would get us to this point. First of all, we must continue to learn about each other. Cultures, experiences, challenges. We need to continue to learn. We have to. There are some ideas on how we do that. Deafhood training for the leadership team, to include the board of trustees, to include our deaf and blind advisory committees on that leadership level. So deafhood training for our deaf staff, deafhood allyship training as well for hearing staff, and just to continue these trainings for blind, visually impaired, accessibility, and the perspective that goes along with that.
New slide.
So these trainings need to continue. We must have this mind shift. We have to have it. We will have ongoing training. Just recently in November, we started a 3-part training called Culture, Excellence, Ideas, and Discussion. CEID is the acronym, SEED. And it was so beneficial. It was a really positive training, and we need to continue those. This week, actually on Friday, January 26th, we will have level 2 of this training. So those will continue. And in this training, it'll include something related to thrive, not just surviving. How we can thrive, not just stay where we are. And the difference between equality and equity. Those are two different terms. And I think we become stuck in like, we want this everything to be equal. And equity does not mean equal. And also it talks about our conscious and unconscious bias. That is something that we need to definitely continue to take a look at ourselves and reflect. We also need to have those courageous conversations. We need to continue those courageous conversations. It should not in any way be threatening. We should be able to work on trying to trust each other in order to have those.
New slide, number 3.
After this one, we need to all come together after this training. And again, the Deaf Advisory Committee, the Blind Advisory Committee, and they talk about the gaps that we see. They talk about where we see the issues, and we need to prioritize where those gaps are for both committees coming together, and they're dedicated to working together instead of silos. We can't continue to work that way. Also, we will provide some town halls for all staff to be able to bring their ideas and suggestions, their feedback, specific to whatever areas we need to improve upon. And then third, we just want to open it up to our statewide advisory group, have people within the state get their thoughts, suggestions, feedback. So wanting to set up that advisory committee as well, to include people all over the state, members of our community, for example. We want them to be included. Okay, so now on to the fourth. My hope will we finally get to this point where we have this strong sense of understanding and the allyship. And once we get to that point, that is when we can start to really develop goals. And we would develop those goals using GROW, the acronym GROW. G for goal, R for reality, O for obstacles, whatever those, we notice, recognize, and then F forward, the W there, a way forward. So I really want to take a look at our system, the systemic problems that are there. They're absolutely systemic problems that we really need to think about and how we can find solutions to those systemic problems. We need to look at our policies, our procedures as well. And all of that work needs to be done collaboratively. We all need to work on it together. Staff, parents, community members, we all need to be involved.
Final slide.
And to wrap up, I want to share with you my final thoughts, share with you this quote. Oh, you go back to the
We
quote.
must stand together.
No,
If we don't, there will be no victory for any one of us. Mary Harris Jones.
We in the deaf community, in the blind community, we absolutely must stand together. If we don't, if there's one group that wins, that's not winning for all of us. We all need to win together. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity to present to you today or this afternoon. I really appreciate everyone coming to watch. Thank you.
Hands in the air as Tara finishes her presentation and leaves the stage. Tara is still on the stage, soon to entertain questions. On the Zoom screen next to Tara is Shane, who is asking questions.
Go ahead and ask this question that was given to us by Jennifer Fow. So there are two different needs here in this community with the blind students and the deaf students. So what does equity exactly mean to you in regards to having both the deaf school here and the blind school? What does that mean for you?
This is Tara signing. As I previously mentioned, I think that sometimes we confuse equality and equity. Equity means that we are trying to meet the needs of the deaf population and the blind population. That absolutely doesn't mean that they have to have the same thing, the same teachers doing the same thing. So the same, like, I mean, budgetary things, we have to look, analyze the needs of both the deaf and the blind, just to make sure that they are getting individually each what they need to ensure that they're successful.
Then our next question is from several anonymous commenters as well as staff that have posed this question. Can you describe your stance or your position on the language policies and how that can impact the curriculum and the outcome? What is your opinion about the language policies here on campus and in all public spaces?
This is Tara signing. I am not sure if you're all aware, we did recently, last fall, we finally were able to pass our first CSDB bilingual policy for teaching deaf students. Prior to that, we didn't have a clear policy that supported bilingual language or the bilingual approach for deaf students. Currently, we are working on revising our current ASL proficiency policy to ensure that each position on campus has an appropriate level of expectation in regards to proficiency, to make sure that our students have all the accessibility they need to language. So as far as that question goes, we are already on the mark with that and working towards that goal.
Our next question is from an anonymous source. Can you please expand or explain specifically your experience with blind and what your plans are to assess the needs and ensure the results for those populations, both here on campus as well as statewide?
This is Tara signing. In my experience, specific to teaching students who are blind, visually impaired, I don't have any myself. But please understand that I do and have worked as a curriculum and assessment instructor for 14 years and director on campus, and I've supported the principals and the teachers who do have that direct teaching to the students who are deaf, blind, visually impaired. It's critical, you know, one of the most critical things specific to our blind, visually impaired students is to ensure that our students have appropriate instruction. And that's not only academics, but also the expanded core curriculum. And that has 9 different areas within it. And for our blind, visually impaired students, it is absolutely critical that as a campus, we give them the accurate or the appropriate amount of time to make sure that they are able to teach to that expanded core curriculum. Again, like I mentioned, there are 9 specific areas that are taught. I'll give you a couple examples. Social emotional skills is one. Sensory empathy, career education, recreation and leisure, assistive technology. That's huge for students who are blind. They have to have that direct instruction to learn how to use this very beneficial assistive technology that we have. It's such a huge part of that, and all of those things are changing all the time. So we have to make sure our students are up to date. They may learn and then it may change, so that we have to reteach. For Braille services as well, there are a variety of different things that are included in that expanded core curriculum. And those are the things that we have shared. O&M is another one, as far as examples goes, that the teachers over in the blind school need to specifically teach those skills for our blind, visually impaired students. It is completely, it's very different than the academic. CSDB, like I've mentioned, is so unique for those students who need all of those additional services. We want to provide all of them for them to be successful.
Our next question is also anonymous. And in regards to your background in deaf education, there are 2 schools here on campus. So what is your knowledge in regards to also leading a school for the blind, not just deaf ed?
This is terrifying. I feel honestly that is one of my strengths in potentially taking on this position. I have firsthand experience for the last 14 years where I've learned so much over those 14 years. I'm in no way an expert, but I have worked directly and been able to support blind, visually impaired staff and students throughout those 14 years. I am still learning all the time and will continue to learn. But I do feel like I have a strong firsthand experience with that.
Our following question is also from an anonymous source. What are your thoughts on how CSDB can thrive and continue to grow after there's been a 10-year decline in enrollment? How can we continue to get students in here to both schools?
This is Tara signing. Absolutely. Yeah, that's an issue. Yeah, I completely agree. We have seen a decline in enrollment for our deaf schools specifically. And I think one critical piece of, well, recruitment or whatever that is. I mean, one of the problems is that the districts statewide don't always receive the accurate information. Families, students, parents, they sometimes don't know what services we offer, what really happens within our school here. Those things are not really known in the districts. So I am hoping to connect CSDB with other directors of special education within those school districts and educate those districts on the accurate information, and they know what we have here to ensure that they are sharing the option of CSDB within their districts, providing opportunities. Maybe there's upcoming events on campus. For example, you know, sometimes colleges have like college visit day or something like that. So that could be a potential that maybe students would go and visit a college. I was thinking something similar. Maybe we could host a CSDB, you know, potential student visit days, something like that, to get people on our campus to see what we offer. So they can see also that we offer more summer programs. So get students here to experience what it is like here at CSDB. I have seen in the past that once students come onto campus, they fall in love with what we're doing here and the campus, and they want to stay. So opening that up and having more opportunities for those things to happen.
Our next question comes from Susie O'Hara. So for many years, the deaf programs here at CSDB have been isolated from other deaf schools. And I think it's really important to have that interaction between students, staff, and to increase those interactions. So how would we do that in order to get more qualified staff interested in working here and those who have a background in education?
And would you repeat that one more time?
Sure, no problem. So for many years, the deaf program here at CSDB has been pretty isolated from other deaf schools. Students and staff really need the opportunity to socialize with other deaf schools. So how would you increase that socialization for both students and staff here, while also getting a variety of well-qualified staff drawn in to come here and those who have a background in deaf education?
This is Tara signing. I think that's an amazing question. Honestly, maybe we start with a collaboration with RMDS, a better collaboration there. I know this year, I think last year as well, that we did host basketball and volleyball games with Rocky Mountain Deaf School, and to collaborate with things like that more often, giving the students an opportunity, both our students and RMDS students, that ability, because we're so close. They're right there. And so I know that also our students were included in the academic bowl last year. We sent our deaf students to a chess competition as well. So I think we need to become more engaged with those national options, and they're already there, you know. The math competition as well, I believe we were involved. So again, to be more involved with those things. And we're already there. We are already looking for things like that and being involved. So we're there.
Our last question is a little bit long, so give me a moment. So in assessing the candidate for the superintendent role, it's really important to understand values, specifically in regards to professional accountability. Can you provide an example of how you demonstrated that accountability in the past, and how do you continue to support that culture of accountability here on campus, and how do you handle situations when that accountability is lacking?
This is Tara signing. Honestly, the current focus right now with our current leadership team is we're really delving deep into accountability this year. We're focusing on how we can increase the accountability here. What we realized was that accountability is tied to having a clear process, and to be aware that everybody knows those clear process, expectations, and procedures. If they don't, accountability is a challenge. So this year, we really jumped right in and worked as a team hard to clarify and document some of our procedures, our expectations. And we believe that once those are clear, it's easier to follow, and then we're able to address if they're not being held accountable. But if people aren't sure of the expectation, then it's really hard to address accountability because they're unaware of the expectations. So this has been a huge focus for us this year in the leadership team. We have made a lot of progress with several different procedures this year. It was a slow go. We had to send it out to staff. So I do think we're going to continue with that as well.
So our last question. This is also anonymous. So in general, regarding building morale and building trust and building those connections and relationships, what 3 ideas do you have to start working on building that morale, trust, and relationship here on campus?
This is Tara signing. I think the first thing that we need is more opportunities for staff and in diverse departments to come together and interact and learn from each other and learn about each other, to develop that relationship, that unity, maybe provide more social opportunities so they can get to know each other. And once you get to know someone, that's when you start to develop those relationships. And once the relationship is developed, that's where that trust comes from. But I do think it starts, with those relationships and building those. And that builds onto that trust. Okay, well, I think that is my last question. So again, thank you all for coming this afternoon. I really do appreciate the opportunity to present to you all this afternoon, and I do appreciate you all coming to see in person as well as Zoom. Thank you all. Thank you.
Tara is leaving the stage. Seems there is a pause between presentations, so nobody is on the stage, waiting for the next candidate to come forward.
It's there, but it's not very
Also, because I'm not speaking very loud.
I know.
Do I need to leave? Right. I need to leave.
I know it is.
Where is the microphone?
Maybe I'll leave this on the side. We're usually sometimes right here.
I keep leaning in, but I don't know if I'm leaning in the right way. And here I am still.
They're telling us that Janet is next.
This is the audio describer. Janet Dickinson is on the stage. There's a slide on the screen. Colorado School for the Deaf and the Blind.
Are we
Building
ready
on
to
success.
start?
Dr.
Hello?
Janet Dickinson.
Oh my gosh, I see so many faces. Okay, I am, the nerves are gone now. Oh, I'm so excited to be invited. My name is Dr. Janet Dickinson. My sign name is JD on the back of your hand. However, it has changed a little bit since the last time I was here. Also, the state of Arkansas has given me a nickname. And I think the whole state of Arkansas calls me by my nickname, and it's Dr. D. So, in fact, the former governor called me Dr. D. So you're welcome to call me any of those. Many of you have known me for many years, so you can call me Janet, and that's perfectly fine. I am so excited to be here. Congratulations on CSDB 150 years. That's exciting. I am happy to be back on campus at CSDB. Some of you may know that I have family ties here to Colorado Springs. My dad was born across the street. There's a hospital that was there. My great-grandmother lived 3 blocks down the street, the other direction. So it's nice to be back where I have family roots. Let me tell you where I'm from. I'm from a farm in Kansas. My family farm is really 3 miles over the Colorado line, so very close to the state of Colorado. So I grew up on a farm in on a little small 1-horse town. I have a friend in my hometown who was deaf, and she and I grew up together. She is now teaching at the New Mexico School for the Deaf. I had another friend from a couple of towns over. Both of us were interested in music, and so we would play the piano together. That friend is blind, and so I grew up with deaf friends, blind friends, and I felt like this is very normal, this unity and equity. My mother was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher, and I knew that I wanted to be a teacher as well. So I went to college to become a teacher.
New slide of what looks like
Thank you for
glamour
that.
shot. And on the slide it says my story.
So when I went to college, my junior year of college, I was in a car accident. I was not driving. I was the front seat passenger. You know, the glove box, you pull down. It was dislodged and hit me in the throat, destroying my voice. This is why you see the ruffles in this picture on my shirt. I had throat surgery, but unfortunately was not able to fix the damage. Well, how do you teach if you can't talk? So I went to observe in a deaf program classroom, and I knew immediately that's what I wanted to do. And I knew that was my future career. So I went to Gallaudet University, graduated with a master's in deaf education, started teaching.
Photo of Janet.
I started teaching, and I enjoyed it so much. We then moved to Pennsylvania. I taught a little bit for a short time at WPSD, and I had the opportunity to start a new school, not a deaf school, just a regular education, a regular school. And so from that experience, I learned how to start a school from scratch, how to buy curriculum, how to hire people, how to market, how to, all of those things. I was there 3 years. That school, when I left, that school had a waiting list of 40 students. I then went to the University of Pittsburgh to get my EDD. You know what that is? It's similar to a PhD, same concept. It gives me the name doctor. You know, and it's easy to, that's the easy way to explain it. At the end of that program, it required that I do some research. And so I was thinking, what do I want to research? And so what were people talking at that time? There was a lot of talk about deaf kids in mainstream schools. There wasn't a lot of research on it. So I started researching, and I started traveling the country, gathering stories, talking with deaf students in public schools, and realized, wow, the impact of language deprivation, social isolation. So I started writing the students' stories. My dissertation became a
Deaf
book
Education in
published
America
by Gallaudet
by
University,
Janet Kearney.
Deaf Education in America, Voices of Deaf Children from Inclusion Settings. I'm not here to promote my book. That's not my point in telling you that. But I wanted you to see, you know, where I'm from. When I graduated, we moved
Photo
to
of
Colorado.
in the snow, in snow attire.
So
waving
this is a
smile.
picture of my family. Let me stop for just a second and say I have a large deaf family. You may know some of them. My husband is John Dickinson. He's a deaf architect. We have 4 deaf children now, 4 of them. The first one is Tasha. She was adopted from Romania. Anna was adopted from southern Russia. Alosha was adopted from northern Russia. And we recently adopted Nalia. She's not from, you know, an international country. She is 9 years old and in the 3rd grade. And she is also visually impaired. So we're excited that she is in our family. So we loved Colorado. And as you see from this picture.
New slide. Picture of Colorado, of CSDB and the sign Colorado.
So when we moved to Colorado, I worked for CSDB and I taught. Probably some of you were my students. Oh gosh, it makes me feel old. But I so enjoy being back on this. I enjoyed being back in the classroom. And then I became the coordinator for curriculum and assessments. I worked both with the blind school and the deaf school. I coordinated state assessments. We worked on data, trying to figure out student growth. We also worked on adopting curriculum for both blind school and the deaf school. After that, I had a wonderful opportunity
New slide.
to lead 3
locals from the Rocky
schools.
Mountain Deaf School, New York School for the
So I
Deaf,
went from Colorado
Harvard
Springs to RMDS. RMDS was a great, great experience. Some of you might have been there with me. I started, when I was there, we were in the basement of a church, and I think we had 23 students. And oh my gosh, this makes me cry when I think about it. So we then moved to a bigger location, and the kids, I mean, it was just exploding. I think while we were there, we started 3 new programs. There was a learning center, which was a daycare preschool. Hi. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing people that I know. Okay. We also started, let's see, the learning center, a middle school, and also a high school, and a sports program. So it was a wonderful team there. And so that school just grew, and I realized we needed a new building so badly. So I started doing some research. Where do we find these monies for a new building? So we found the BEST grant. And so wrote for the grant, submitted it, it was approved. But we had to fundraise $1.13 million in a very short time frame. And that was a lot of money for us. So we started writing letters to famous people, reaching out to foundations, meeting with private donors, you know, and as time went along, we saw the money grow as well. And so just in time, we met the matching funds. We got all those. So we got it. So then RMDS started designing the new facility. At that point, I moved to Fanwood, the New York School for the Deaf. I was the first woman to lead that school. That school started in 1817. What an honor to be the first woman. So we focused on accreditation. We were able to pull up the education program and a variety of programs within the school. We did receive full accreditation by Middle State. We also started a new foundation there. And we needed a dance teacher. Who dances in New York City? Do you know a group? Do you know the Rockettes? You know, they line up and they kick. Okay. I decided I'd just reach out to the Rockettes. And so a friend, through a friend of a friend of a friend, we were able to make that happen. And the Rockettes came and began teaching our kids dance class. So building partnerships like that is part of what I do. When I left Fanwood, I moved to the Arkansas School for the Deaf. So the team there worked hard to pass accreditation to bring, it is a residential program. And so we worked hard to bring up the education, the residential program. And so to really, those programs really were enhanced. They did achieve a prestigious advanced ed accreditation. Then we were able to open new programs. There is a Deaf Career Center that serves not just, it's similar to the Employment Center here, but it also serves deaf adults for job coaching, job placement, those sorts of things. We also, the blind school and the deaf school work together. And so we had shared services. So I supervised those departments between the deaf school and the blind school. Now, I feel like it has come full circle. Denver, New York, Arkansas, back to Colorado Springs. And I love being back here. This is where my heart is. I would love the opportunity to be here. I think with all of the skills, the 3 different schools that I have led, the foundations that we've established, the enhancement of academics and the variety of teams and people, the starting of new programs, I bring a lot of experience back to CSDB. Things that I will, things that I've done at other schools, I will do here as well, plus some new things. So, it's been great being here. If I'm your superintendent, I will start by meeting your staff person every staff person in the first 3 months. I will ask them what's happening, what's good at CSDB, what needs to improve, and what are your best ideas for the future. Then I will focus on meeting with the students. I've already started gathering ideas from them, started that yesterday. I'll also meet with the community. I would love to meet with you, meet one-on-one or as a group. I'm thrilled to do that.
Graphic.
Quickly, there are 5 things that you could expect from me if I'm here in the first year.
5 actions you can expect in my
I can't tell you exactly what my vision for the future of CSDB is, but I think that's more collaborative work. But I can tell you these things will happen in the first year.
Rectangle number 1.
The first thing is we will start the journey to become a world-class education organization. Are you serious? World-class? Yep. I have visited over 30 international schools for the deaf all over the world. I've been to Hong Kong, South Korea, Greece recently, and I'm telling you, CSDB is close to the top. This goal is very doable. We have work to do to make it happen. So how do we make this happen? We must have a good, strong education program. I haven't been here. I'm not sure where they are, but we have to raise the bar. Raise the bar for literacy for both blind students and deaf students. Innovation is key. Where in the U.S. is a school where all of the students are reading on grade level that are blind or deaf? It is hard to find. So we cannot just, do what other schools are doing. We must be innovative.
New slide.
Second,
Rectangle
we
image.
will grow enrollment.
Graphic
I do
table.
not like to see
Arrow.
numbers go down.
Arrow
I want to see our school thrive. Every school that I have led over the years, all of them, the enrollment has grown. And that's an important key. And it's important to me. Well, I start that process by talking to the students. What do they think? What will make this school the kind of place that kids want to be here? They know what other kids like. And that's where I start. Sometimes we'll find out things by talking to students that there's problems that need to be solved, bullying, things in the cafeteria. They help us identify issues, and they also help us reach other students.
New slide.
The other thing we'll do about enrollment that's important to me is the enrollment process. From the time the parents contact the school, it must be a positive experience and a smooth process. I want them to see what we can offer. I've also learned that sometimes it's important that we have those warm connections. Sometimes they start the process and they say no. If that happens, then we don't say, okay, but they're still part of our family. We will maybe annually just reach back out to them. Is now a good time? Are you interested? Come back. How can we support you? Last year at ASD, by the end of the year, we had 27 new deaf students in our school. So we can see those numbers grow and our school thrive.
New slide. A rectangle with many colored hands together and the number 3.
Number 3 is a positive climate and culture here at CSDB. How do we do that? Well, there are many parts to this puzzle that you already have. I feel like the foundation is important that we review. Do staff and students feel safe? This is a safe place. Do staff and students feel emotionally safe? Sometimes bullying happens. Sometimes there are toxic staff that are allowed to continue, and those issues had not been solved. Also, equity is also key. Sometimes people feel, oh, I prefer that person, or I prefer that, something else. The school doesn't really value me. And so it is key that all of our staff and students feel valued, and that sense of belonging is important. And I hope that you feel you belong on this campus. I also think that high expectations is important. One student told me something yesterday. I'm trying to remember exactly how the student said it. Something like, I want high expectations that shows the staff they care about me and my future rather than just, poo-pooing me. Students need to feel and see those high expectations. The staff are the same way. I personally think warm connections is really important. As superintendent, I feel like I start that process by meeting everyone, building those relationships, and then it will spread.
New slide. Image rectangle.
Very quickly, we are reaching the end. Number 4, how do we retain and recruit staff? Well, I think, to keep staff when you have, it's easy to keep staff when you have a positive climate. I also do a stay interview. You know what that is? Well, I say, that staff will come meet with me and we'll meet one-on-one, and I value you. I want you to stay. Is there anything happening that bothers you? How do we keep you feeling that belonging so that you stay? And that's important to do those meetings with our staff members. How do you recruit? I like to get on a plane, and I will go to Gallaudet and RIT. And I know that there are other schools, and I will find out where those are that focus on blind education. And I don't go by myself. I will take the mascot, the school mascot, and the students, some students. I can't say no to students. Take those with me, and we will go to Gallaudet or RIT's job fair. I've also had a lot of success with Gallaudet and RIT. They've also welcomed me into, future teachers' classrooms there before they graduate. So I can talk to them about deaf schools and what is it like to work here. And oftentimes student teachers will come and work for us. Let me wrap this up by saying reputation is so key. We must know exactly what our reputation is out there. If there's problems, we must solve them. And then we show a new face, a new era of CSDB. Maybe that's a new website. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's new something. It's a new direction for our school. And, there are honored traditions, but we can certainly make some changes to give it a fresh face. And we coordinate all of those things with our community. So there are I would establish 3 advisory councils. One of those would be for the blind and visually impaired professionals. We would come and meet, and to help guide me to a deeper understanding of what our students need at the blind school and collaborate with our staff, not to oversee the board, but just give us some good ideas and how we can improve. Another advisory board would be with deaf professionals. What are we missing? Is there something better we can be doing? And another group that I have not mentioned is parents. Any parents in the room? Yeah, some of you. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you, as a mom, I feel it's important to a school. It's important that a school listens to the parents. So I would have a parental advisory board. And so I would love to establish those 3 things.
Image, text boxes 1 through 5.
In closing, if you want CSDB to look the same in the next 5 years, don't pick me. That's not my strength. I don't like the same and mundane. I'm not that kind of person. If you want to see CSDB thrive and move up, that's me. I'm your person. I'm a mover and shaker kind of person. And so I would love to have the opportunity to be here with you to really pull up CSDB. And
Final slide.
I look forward to being a bulldog with you.
Go Bulldogs.
Thank you.
Hi, so now we have questions from the community for you. So our first question. So this first question comes from Jennifer Faub. She's a community member. And her question is, there are 2 different needs here at the school with the blind students and the deaf students. So what does equity exactly mean to you as it concerns both schools' perspectives?
That's a good question. For me, every child deserves our best. Deserves our best. Whatever we can give them. I know sometimes it feels, it feels awkward with funding, but I've met with the leadership team yesterday morning, and I told them that one thing, if I'm superintendent, that my first job is that I want you to start developing a world-class program for your respective department. What do you need? Do you need professional development to make that happen? Do you need equipment? Do you need people? What do you need? And then let me start working on the how to make that happen. One thing that I'm really good at is fundraising. I've got a lot of experience with that. Working with donors, foundation, getting grants. There's a lot of ways that we can get funding outside of our regular budget. So I don't want anyone to feel limited. Every department deserves our best. and every child deserves our best. So equity means the best to our ability.
Our second question is from an anonymous source, JM and staff. So this question is, can you please discuss your stance or your position on language policies and how that impacts the curriculum? And also, what are your opinions on language policies on campus to encourage signing in all public spaces?
We all know that language access is key to learning. You can't learn if you don't have language access. So every student must have a rich language access to the environment. So what does that mean for us as staff? So how do we establish a rich language environment? I think it's better if I explain to you what I've done at the Arkansas School for the Deaf so you can see kind of where I'm coming from. Our first year, we established a language policy so that every person must meet a specific signing requirement of proficiency. At the end of the year, if they've not met that requirement, they cannot continue employment. So we made a hard decision that kids should not have to suffer because adults are not ready to teach or work with them. So I feel, looking back on it 8 years later, I feel like that was a good policy. It has not been easy, but it was a good policy. A staff person who comes in and shows a lot of progress and they just barely miss that benchmark, we give them another 6 months. So there is some flexibility, but it is a fairly strict policy. But that's not only people in the classroom. It applies campus-wide. It applies to our cafeteria staff, everyone on our campus. And what I found in Arkansas, maybe it doesn't apply to the blind school, but so many of those staff have also started signing at the blind school. It also, if you take a moment to think, what does it mean for blind students as well? Often we think about language access is really a deaf issue, but it's really not 100% a deaf issue. Blind students also miss out on a lot of information. So we must make sure that we are doing our best to make their environment accessible as well. I think that's good.
So our next question is also anonymous. And it says, can you please elaborate on your specific experience with education with students who are visually impaired or those who are blind, and how to address their needs and make sure that there are quality resources for them as well here on CSDB campus and statewide?
First, let me explain my experience. My experience started a long time ago. Remember, I told you I was getting an EDD, something similar to a PhD. Part of my work on that project was to do an internship with a woman named Barbara Raimondo. I don't know if you know her name. She is from Washington, D.C. She's a lobbyist, an attorney. She worked a lot with deaf children in Washington, D.C. And so I did an internship with her, I don't know, 6 months, 9 months, maybe it was a long time. But we spent almost every day, I think it was with an AER representative who was blind. And so we worked with deaf students and blind students. So my first experience is from an advocacy standpoint. And of course, when I came here, I did, assessments for both deaf students and blind students. It was assessments and curriculum. When I left CSDB, I was in the deaf field at RMDS, Fanwood, and then at ASD in Arkansas. The deaf school and the blind school are adjacent to each other, and they did work together on many projects. So all of that to say, do I have enough experience in blind education? My answer is no. I think you can never have enough experience. So my experience does not replace many hours of spending time with our teachers, our students, learning programs, gaining an understanding. I have many friends in the field of blindness. My sister is in the field of blindness, so it is close to home. So I know a lot about the field, but the experience and the specifics that you're hoping for, I don't have those 100%.
Our next question. You have a strong background in deaf education, but the superintendent of CSDB has to also be aware of the needs of leadership of the blind school. So how would you approach that?
Before I answer that, I overlooked one important thing from the last question. So if you don't mind, I'm going to add something to that one. Our daughter is 9. Remember, she is visually impaired, and I work a lot with her. So I don't want to overlook Nalia. So that is important to remember that I do have a personal connection to the field of blindness. So as a superintendent for both the deaf school and the blind school, I think it's important that things are balanced, that everyone feels equal and valued on this campus. I think that we are cohesive, but we also are separate. The needs of blind students and advocacy needs, technology, accessibility needs are different, and those needs have to be met. The needs of deaf students also need to be met. So it can be one school, but we serve 2 very different student populations. So we have to recognize both of them equally.
Our next question. Oh, and I forgot to include something. Last time I asked this, we have a lot of people that are submitting anonymously, but this next question is from Barbara Silveri, one of our members, as well as Christina Kratke. She's a substitute teacher. And Sabrina Valencia, who is a community member. And the question from them is, how can CSDB grow and thrive after there has been a decline in enrollment in the past 10 years at the deaf school? And also, we've had pretty steady numbers at the blind school, but not a lot of increase in student enrollment.
I think I spoke to that in my presentation. Growth of enrollment is something I've experienced and had a lot of success with. It is a myth of many deaf schools and blind schools that those numbers have to decrease. And I know other schools, those numbers are growing. And I've seen that happen. We have to dig deep and see why. What's the problem? I have a lot of different ideas that I can pull from other schools, but we have to dig deep here and see what's going on. I am not the kind of person, like I said before, to allow things to remain the status quo. I care deeply about academic achievement and raising the standards for literacy, making sure our kids can read, and we pull up those standards and expectation. That's a passion of mine, so I will be heavily involved in that area. We will have an education leadership team like we've had at the Arkansas School for the Deaf. I meet with the ed leadership team on a weekly basis. We look at the data. We know where our kids are growing, where they're not growing. If they're not growing, we are not happy with the status quo. Just stay what we're doing. We want to see things change and those kids thrive. We don't assume that things will stay and be stagnant. That's not okay. I want to see them growing. Sorry, a little bit off topic here. You know what I found out recently? In 2030, What will be the highest hiring job, the most hiring job in the country? Do you know? Do you know? I did some research recently. It's an AI specialist. Our kids, when they're trying to be getting jobs in 2030, are we preparing them for AI? Are we preparing them for good careers? So we have to look ahead, look into the future and see what's happening. We cannot give them an education of the past. We must give them the education of the future.
All right, our next question is from Susie O'Hara. And the question is, for many years, the deaf program here at CSDB has been isolated from other deaf schools. And we need to really capitalize on that socialization for the students and staff. How would you increase that, as well as how would you get qualified deaf educators into the school?
Well, in my presentation, I talked about how I would recruit deaf educators. So let me address the other part of your question. It is so important for kids to socialize with other kids from other deaf schools. Why not? I don't know exactly what's been happening here, but the schools that I have led these last few years have been heavily involved in sports, tournaments, academic bowl, other things, other activities. I also send our teachers to public schools to observe the same class that they're teaching at the deaf school. They'll go observe for 1 day a year so they can see, what does third grade look in a public school? I mean, I know for me, when I taught at the deaf school, I was so far from what was happening in public schools. It's important that we keep up. Also, we try every 2 years to send our teachers to go to another deaf school and visit. So ASD, let's see, our teachers have gone to Kansas. Some came here, actually. They've gone to the Texas School for the Deaf. Just some other schools. It is healthy to go and observe and see what it's like, garner some ideas, and see what those teachers are doing and techniques. Build those connections. We can't be isolated.
All right, our next question is a little bit of a long one. So, in the role of superintendent, people are really curious to know about your values, both personally and professionally, as well as the idea of accountability. How have you demonstrated that accountability in previous roles? And also, how do you make that accountability happen for the team? Or if it's not happening, how do you have those conversations around people being accountable?
Trying to think about what's the heart of that question. Accountability, I can talk about for sure. If you knew me before I worked here, or knew me when I was a nice person, I liked people, I wanted people to like me, I was friendly, and I struggled when I first started in leadership. I struggled with making sure people were accountable. I learned when I don't keep people accountable, who suffers? The students. And the other people who are doing a great job, they also suffer. And so I'm letting this climate happen because I'm not willing to stand up and be strong and address and have hard conversations. So I have learned through the years, one of the keys to having a successful school, to make those changes, do not be afraid to be accountable. So a previous weakness has become one of my strengths. Accountability is important. Tell me again the first part of that question.
Yeah, the first part says, how do you demonstrate that? And how have you demonstrated that accountability in previous roles?
Well, two ways, I think. Right now, I'm working with leaders who are not holding people accountable. So I think it's really important that if a teacher is not seeing growth in the classroom, they're not trying to tweaking, making changes to improve, they're not willing to change, we have to sit down and talk about that and start that conversation with people who are not willing to do their job. I'm willing to sit down and say, look, most of the time people want to do a good job. They just don't know how. They don't know exactly what you want them to do. And sometimes that's our fault. I realized that's my fault because my expectations were not clear. Or we don't have a clear job expectations, or the training is not up to par. So we really have to sit down and have those hard conversations. As a superintendent, yes, but also leaders as well, and supervisors as well. It's also training our supervisors to make sure that we show and we celebrate the good things that they're doing, as well as keeping them accountable. And there's a balance.
All right, this is our last question.
Okay.
So campus-wide, we need to build morale, trust, and unity. What three ideas do you have that would successfully start working on building that morale, that trust, and that unity here on campus?
First, it's important to me, if we're talking about staff, right? Staff morale. Okay. I have a monthly town hall that I do monthly with our staff. I tend to do 3 or 4 town halls every month. You know, for those who work overnight, you know, overnight for overnight staff, I'm there at 9 o'clock at night. So, you know, during town halls, we do a lot of things. We will talk, we will celebrate successes. We also do things like Totally Awesome. It's a system that we started. I want to show appreciation for someone else on our campus. So I will, there's an app and I send a message that says something like, thanks a lot, and I send it to them. But it also goes through every message that's sent, that department gets a point. So during the town hall, we will look and see which department has the most points, have sent the most messages of appreciation. The department with the most appreciation, this is meaningful to me, but I don't know about you, but they get free, that department gets a free Sonic drink. Sometimes it's a small department and it's hard to win. So we also give a prize for the department that has sent the highest percentage of appreciation. They get a free candy bar. So we do that during the town hall. We also get together and say, I'm very transparent. And I say, look, we need to work on enrollment. Let's look at our scores. We have, you know, 3 new students now. And so how can we better get together in groups of 5 and we'll figure out any good ideas for this particular topic. And so I think that starts the basis that we are on a team. So, and I would carry that through in a variety of ways. And we do that on a monthly basis. Let me give you one more example because it's my favorite. We have fun during the year. If you've worked with me in the past, you know that I like to have fun. So let's see, it's January now. Let me just say, if you work in a school, it is a long, arduous time between January and spring break, right? So we started what we call winter madness. So every week there is a surprise for the staff. Maybe one week it's we have free Sonic drinks that, delivered to your class. One week we may have a fun, we may play dodgeball with the staff. One week it might be, we go to the Chinese restaurant and get a free egg roll. Just a variety of things. And it's just surprise the staff every week. There's so many fun things that we can do throughout the year to lift staff morale. But we have to go back and look at the foundation always, building those and maintaining those warm relationships, equity, safety. Thank you again for your time. I love being back on the CSDB campus in Colorado. Take care, and I appreciate your time.
Dr. Dickinson is leaving the stage. Short break before the third presenter begins. Okay. One more. And the stays. Yeah. Just between you and me. And mine started when the blind school had me describing it 7:45.
Oh my gosh. Oh, because they had the security.
Yeah, it was cool.
Hey, everyone, can I get your attention? I'm getting ready to start. Hey, in the back, everybody ready? We're going to hang off just a couple minutes. We're going to hold off, waiting for some more people to get here.
We are.
Are we ready? Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience. I know that I'm at the end. My name is Chris Captain, and I am one of the candidates for superintendent today. And I really have felt the warmth the last couple of days in Buffalo or Bulldog country, excuse me. The friendliness and the welcome is just very inspirational. It's my first time to be in this area. I've been to Denver before, but I've never been to Colorado Springs. So thank you everybody for making me feel so welcome here. So I want to start off with a quick visual description of myself. I'm short, about 5'5". I'm a stocky guy. I'm wearing a navy blue shirt. My tie is gray and blue with patterns on it. I'm wearing gray pants. I've got a salt and pepper beard with brown hair. Good? All right, Shane, take it away. Okay, yeah. I would like to tell you a little bit about my journey and who I am. As a potential superintendent, you want to know who I am, right? I grew up in New York. I was born in Woodstock, New York. That's where I was born. Yep, that one, the same one with the music festival. That's where I was born, in Woodstock. I was born hearing, and I became deaf at the age of 2. I was stricken with meningitis. And at that time, my mom really didn't know what to do. She was getting a lot of medical advice as she had this newly deaf son, and she wasn't sure what to do. And my mom told me the story because at that time, as a 2-year-old, I wouldn't recall it. But my mom recounted the story. And remember, this is 1981. And in the medical field, they said, you need to teach your son to speak, not to sign. And my mom, she didn't think that that was right. It didn't sit well with her. So she decided she would learn sign language. And remember, in the 1980s, there was CE signs, signed exact English. And so my mom exposed me to language. I grew up mainstream. I grew up in New York. And then in high school, that's when I really started to delve into my identity as a deaf individual. And I wanted to be around peers. And in my mainstream program, I was the only deaf person, seriously, the only deaf person in a high school of 2,000 people. I mean, yeah, they provided me interpreting services. They gave me captioning. Of course, it's the old school boxes where you have to punch them in. They provided that for me. And so I felt that the service was adequate, but I was lonely. So I understand that feeling. And so one of the things that I bring is the experience for the parents. When you have a child that's deaf or blind, and you're encountering this first time, the feeling of lost, what do I do? You feel so alone. I see what my mom went through, what my family went through, and I get that feeling. I went to high school to deaf residential school for the last 2 years, my junior and senior year at MSSD, the Model Secondary School for the Deaf in Washington, D.C. And the reason that I went there is because my parents wanted me to get a good education. I went and, oh my goodness, it was a wonderful experience. I found my identity. I began to understand deaf culture. I just felt like I belonged. I felt so involved. And as I started to contemplate what my future was going to look like, I knew right there in high school I wanted to be a teacher. So when I graduated high school, I went to college, and I majored in history and education. During that time, I knew I wanted to be a history teacher. And so I thought, that'd be awesome to go and teach at my alma mater, MSSD. I would love that. Do they have an availability? I'm not really sure. But there was a teacher that I really looked up to that retired, and I snagged that job. And so I taught the gamut for 4 years, from economics and government. I taught world history, U.S. history, AP history. I taught immigration students. You name it, I taught it for social studies and history. And as my journey continued, I decided I need a different environment. So I moved to Maryland School for the Deaf in Frederick, Maryland, as the same role as a teacher. I taught for 3 years there. And then I became the director of curriculum instruction. That was the exact time when the federal government released their Common Core nationwide curriculum as a standardized curriculum for education. I became DCI. My biggest responsibility was to work with the State Department of Education in Maryland, to liaise with them, to take the information that they gave us in the statewide curriculum and then bring it to the school, work with the school to provide the emphasis on the content areas that need more focus, especially math and English. And so as time progressed, we hired literacy coaches. We hired specialists for different programs at Maryland School for the Deaf. And as we started to experience success, my journey kept going. I want to go a little closer to home. And so I applied and accepted a job as a principal at the Learning Center for the Deaf in Massachusetts, at the Marie Phillips School, the MPS school. I was a secondary principal, middle school and high school. I did that for 8 years. And from the time I arrived, the high school program had actually only been established in 1984. So it was still relatively new when I got there. There was only one principal before me. I was the second principal for the program. And so I focused on academic rigor. I tried to elevate the students. I focused on elevating the students' experience. We set up honors classes, AP classes. The National Honor Society for Students became something that they strived for. And students that were deaf plus, that needed extra instruction, we set up an ILS, Independent Living Skills Instruction class for grades 12 plus. And that's where we teach them, and we just help them get set up for life. A big emphasis of my background in curriculum is helping guide teachers through the curriculum and with the expectations of the curriculum via maps and unit plans and how they're going to teach that curriculum in the class. We set up a philosophy with how we can teach effectively. I know some of the people in the audience I see are wearing ball caps. And some of those ball caps, they might be adjustable. Some of them are fitted, right? Some of them do not adjust. Is that correct? You might take off your hat and look in the label. What does it say? It says one size fits all. But that's not applicable to education. We don't just take one thing and apply it to everybody. We have to adjust it. We have to meet the students where they are in school. Our deaf and hard of hearing school and our blind VI students as well. We have to meet them. And my commitment as a superintendent is to elevate that experience here. So after my principal stint, then I became the director of student services, and that's my current job. I've been in that role for 4 years at the Learning Center. I oversee 2 schools. If you're not familiar with the Learning School for the Deaf, or Learning Center for the Deaf, they have 2 programs, and they have 2 different functions. One school is a regular deaf education school, the Marie Phillips School, and then there's the Walden School. It is one of only 2 schools in the whole country for the deaf that offers a therapeutic environment for students with trauma. So we have 2 programs. We have dual programs, and I'm responsible for both of those programs right now. My role thus far in these 4 years has been to focus on everything outside of the classroom. If I do my math right. So I spent 17 years, as a teacher, DCI, principal, and in the outside of the classroom, I focus on the operations. In the last 4 years, I've focused on facilities, food service, mental health, support services, and that means like SLP, speech language pathologists, OTs, physical therapists, behavioral analysts, school psychologists, school counselors, all of those people. All of these related services are under my purview. I work with all of these different programs at the school. And so I bring a 360-degree perspective of how our school runs. And our school's been running for over 20 years. Next, please, Shane. Thank you.
New slide, 3 priorities for CSDB. 3 bullet points: academic excellence, investing in us, and looking beyond 150 years.
I'd like to expound upon 3 different points. And I have different slides for each point. So this is my vision as superintendent. Academic excellence, investing in us, and then looking beyond the last 150 years. Next, please.
Title at the top of the slide is academic excellence. 5 bullet points following.
Oh, I can see the mouse clicking. It's not cooperating.
Slide hasn't switched yet. Technical.
There we go. Thanks, Shane.
Academic excellence.
Are we good? Ready to proceed? Okay. Strategic vision for graduating seniors.
First bullet point.
For your child, for your student that goes here, once they graduate, what do you want to see for them? What do you want to see them be? What do you want their journey to be like? What do you want their career to be? Are they going to go to college? Because all of that starts here. It starts the moment that student sets foot on campus or connects with one of the services that CSDB provides through our outreach program, through the different services that the school offers. That is where we connect, and we are responsible for your student success. So we have to start here. We have to start early with early intervention. We have to expose them to language. We have to expose them to those skills. For the blind students, the skills with Braille, with orientation and mobility, with all the different areas, we have to focus on that. That's an ongoing thing. That's how we get them to achieve their dreams. And that involves an investment from the community, from the staff who work here. And that ranges from our custodians, to the interpreters, to the instructors, to the para-instructors, the support staff, the front office, everybody who serves a role here. We have to have everybody who has a role here be invested in the students. To get to that goal, we have to look at how we are providing services for students here. How are we meeting their needs? And I have some suggestions for that.
Second bullet point, align instruction towards college and career readiness.
Curriculum instruction is not the same as it was 20 years ago. And what you're reading in your books is not the same as what was being taught, because it's always evolving. It is not stagnant. So we have to align our instruction. There are so many teachers here that have gone to grad school. They went to teach, and maybe they graduated last year, and they're a new teacher. Some of them might have been teaching for 20 years. But if you've been teaching for 20 years, a lot of that information is old. So how do we maintain that instructional excellence? How do we align that with what we're teaching in the classroom? I'd like to share a story that I learned from a friend who works at Amazon. I'm going to give an example of how I believe this is going to work. When we think about our students, when they go to college, some of them might also go to work. And it's going to be challenging for deaf and blind students to find jobs. It's tough. But I think the opportunities that assistive technology provide now, we are seeing, oh my goodness, so many more opportunities even than a year ago, 5 years ago, and definitely more than 20 years ago, way more opportunities. And an example from a friend that I have that works at Amazon, they have a blind employee that works there, a blind coworker. They have a fantastic bit of technology. It's called AIRA, A-I-R-A, AIRA camera. And the blind employee who works for Amazon wears that camera, and that is their visual guide. They work on the line, and that camera will speak will announce what's going on in front of them. If there's a light flashing, it's going to tell them there's a light flashing. That camera will let them know what's going on in the warehouse. Isn't technology amazing? So what I'm saying is, are we preparing our students for that world? We have to. Moving on.
Next bullet point, high
I
quality.
was just talking about teachers and the staff that work here. The skills and the tools that we have to provide, we have to give them opportunities to learn. We give our students opportunities to learn. We have to do the same thing with our staff. Professional development and trainings. They have to become better at what they do, and I want that for them. We are responsible for providing that kind of experience for our staff. We want to train them in curriculum. We want to train them so that when there are students that are struggling with ADHD, or they're struggling with how to retain and memorize information, then we're going to have workshops geared to that. And we're going to bring that here. We're going to send the staff to training if we don't provide it here. That's what I mean by that.
Fourth bullet point, making data-driven decisions.
Here in Colorado, there's a state assessment, the CMAS, that they have. And the data shows that there are gaps with English and mathematics. That's okay. That just means we've got work to do. But the kind of decisions that the school makes need to be data-driven. They need to be related with data accumulation, the CMAS test and the MAP test, the measure of academic progress. That's a measure of growth. So as I was doing my due diligence for this job and I was looking on the internet, there's no information. Where's all the information that shows that this is the data we're looking at? This is what we're using to make the decisions for instructing our deaf and hard of hearing students as well as our blind low vision students. We have to use the data. So we have to work with the leadership team, work with the staff. We have to get all this information. Then we can start breaking it down and assessing it.
Fifth and final bullet point, provide instructional coherence.
And the last thing is a little bit more about how we provide cohesive instruction in the classroom and support. One of my experiences in my program now in Massachusetts that I've had, we have two different schools, and for many years they have functioned siloed, independently, not collaboratively. And it's very interesting because right after COVID, we noticed a real increase in mental health needs among the students because of isolation and social deprivation. We noticed that in our school. A lot of students have trauma from their experiences with COVID. And in the Walden School, we have experts in trauma right there. But nobody ever thought of asking them, hey, can you give us some advice? Give us a little guidance. We have to be more collaborative. And so that is an area where I can see that we need to build bridges and have relationships and share resources between the blind and the deaf programs here. Can you advance it, please, Shane? Thank you.
Next slide, titled Investing in Us, with 4 bullet points. Maintaining growth through our strategic plans and accreditation efforts.
The reason I'm pausing is so that we can get an
community
accurate
partnerships,
audio description.
alumni.
All right. Investing in the school requires a lot of work. It requires a commitment. It also requires motivation and desire. We want to see growth in 2 areas. But to do that, how do we hold ourselves accountable for the work that we're doing here? One example is strategic planning. We have a strategic plan that is going to run its course in 2025. So we've got about a year and a half left on this plan. And so if I'm elected as superintendent, or if I'm chosen, I'm going to address the areas that we have not finished in that plan. And then we are also going to start developing a new strategic plan. And that strategic plan should align with our accreditation process. The accreditation, that is a process where we get an outside expert to come in and evaluate us. Are we doing what's right? Are we teaching the deaf, and are we teaching the blind students in the appropriate manner? And then they give us their seal of approval, or they don't. So there's 2 different organizations for the deaf, CEASD and AER. And my goal is I want this school to be accredited by both organizations to provide, we are providing excellence in our academic services here. That is a commitment of mine. As I was driving last night, I drove past the soccer stadium. And then all of a sudden, a light bulb went on. You know, it would be super cool if we had CSDB night. That's an example of how we can provide community relations. We can reach out to the community of Colorado Springs. We've been here for 150 years. There are so many businesses that we could partner with. We could get internship opportunities to provide opportunities for experience for our students here. We could collaborate. We could cooperate with them. One of the things that I mentioned in my interview yesterday is the idea of hosting a legislative day where we invite our state and local legislators to come onto our campus. Invite them, come on down, meet our students, see what the great things that we're doing here, and see our commitment and our investment in this school. My commitment is also to our alumni. The alumni is the lifeblood of this school. And we have to have a partnership with CSDB. The Alumni Association, as we approach our 150-year anniversary, it is very important. Sorry, I'm trying to truncate for time.
New slide, looking beyond,
okay, I can wait.
beyond 150 years. 4 bullet points: opportunities for our students after high school, stronger community partnerships, continuing beneficial relationships with community organizations, CDE and state legislators, preparing for the 151st year and beyond.
Okay. All right. Some of these things I've already touched on, but one of the things I've yet to mention is maintaining our relationship with the CDE. Strengthening the partnership with CDE, having outreach services with the different services we provide through early intervention. How do we provide exposure to blind and to deaf students and to their families? How do we make the resources and information available? We have to work with the state. And so they are depending on the team that we have to provide the information that the state needs so that the state can make or can give the families access to all of the options that they have instead of just one. So in a nutshell, I could go on forever, but thank you so much for bearing with me. That's pretty much that. Thank you so much.
Hello, we have some questions from the community that have been asked. The community has asked a total of 8 questions for you. The first one comes from Jennifer Fow. She is a community member. So we've got 2 needs here on campus. We've got deaf students and blind students. Can you tell us what equity means to you?
Equity is giving the same opportunities. A deaf student's getting an opportunity and a blind student getting the same type of opportunities. They might not be the same opportunities, but they are equitable opportunities, equal. I was talking with a student, the student body government yesterday. We were having a discussion. They were sitting around, and so I was asking, you know, what are some of your favorite things, your favorite classes? And guess what the number one complaint was? Food, of course. Yeah, food. And I told them, hey, we have the same problem in Massachusetts. They complain about the food there too. Interestingly enough, at the same time, I was also asking them, what do you want for the future? And they expressed some different dreams. One blind student wants to be a voice actor. They want to be able to use their voice to make movies. I thought, wow, isn't that cool? Another person wants to be a musician. One of the deaf students wants to go to RIT. Another student wants to go work with coding, with computer coding. I thought, oh, wow, what are we going to do to support these students? They need opportunities. And that's what I mean by equity, getting opportunities for them to achieve their dreams.
This question, we're curious as to your stance on language policy and how it may impact curriculum and educational outcomes. Also, what is your opinion on having a language policy on campus to encourage signing in public spaces? And this comes from Anonymous as well as JM and staff.
Okay. I'm probably going to have to get you to repeat that because it's a 2-part question, but let me address the first part. My language policy will align with the curriculum, right? Okay, yeah, the educational outcomes. All right. Educational outcomes are really dependent on the exposure, either from birth or from when they get here. If the student arrives here, they might not have any language experience. They might not have any Braille skills. They might not have any science skills. And it's our responsibility to provide that access. And that means we have to look at our curriculum. And in our curriculum, how does it provide the appropriate accommodations? And I don't know. That's something that I'm going to have to delve into. I'm going to have to work with the leadership team, the classroom teachers, to find out what are we doing to provide that kind of equitable environment and that access to language, both auditory and visual. Now, the second part of the question that was asked, I believe, relates to my view on language policy on campus. And my view is always sign to the best of your abilities. I respect that there are some staff that, I mean, their job is to working with blind students, and that's okay. They don't have the best skills, but they sign to the best of their abilities. It is the school's responsibility to provide ASL classes. If we're not already doing it, we should be, for the staff to be able to take. And I would encourage them all to take ASL classes so that you can have some minimal conversation skills.
Okay, could you please expand on your specific experience, including the education of students with visual impairment, including blindness? And what? How do you how do you plan on meeting the needs to assess and ensure adequate resources for this population, both at the CSDB campus and statewide?
As a teacher and as a principal, I have experience working with deaf and blind students, working with orientation and mobility and teachers of the visually impaired. We have blind students in our program, so I have some experience working with different specialists with TVIs, making sure that their IEP goals and making sure that they have enlarged print, that the font size is adequate, getting in magnification equipment. That is for the deaf blind students. I have some experience with that. Now, statewide, there are some resource gaps. There are some insufficiencies in the resource. And based on that question, it seems like the problem is there's not enough resources available for blind and visually impaired students in the state. And so I need to find out why that is. I got to figure out the why. Why do we not have enough? Where are those gaps and what are the causes? And then we start to doing our job to get the things that we need so that we can provide the students. I mentioned that story about Amazon. If Amazon has that kind of space age technology, then we can find some money within our school, or we can find some grants to provide access to the resources for our blind and visually impaired students.
Okay, this next question comes from an anonymous source. And the question is, you all have an extensive background in deaf education. We have 2 schools here on campus. If you become the next superintendent of CSDB, how do you intend to gain the necessary knowledge to also lead the school for the blind?
You know, I kind of expected this question because I know that all of the candidates are primarily experienced in deaf education, but I want to tell you right now, my commitment, I will fully invest in learning about blind education. I will. That is one of the goals I have, to learn to work with the staff. Tell me about, how do you teach? I want to sit in your classroom. I want to observe. I want to talk with the leaders in the blind program. I want them to educate me, invest, give me some of that knowledge. I have to, because I'm a representative of the school. So I have to know how both programs run.
Okay, number 6, this question comes from several people. The first one comes from the first person being Barbara Saravelli.
Christine
Mhm.
Kratky.
The second person is Christina Kratky, who is a teacher, a substitute teacher here in Para, and then Sabrina Valencia, who is a member of the community. Their question for you is, what are your thoughts on how CSDB can thrive and continue to grow after a 10-year decline in enrollment in the deaf school and the same number of students at the blind school?
You know, I've thought a lot about this topic, and as I was looking at the numbers, it's true. The number of enrollment has gone down. We've also lost a lot of staff as well. Why is that? Are people happy here? Are they? Are they feeling supported? Are they feeling like their needs are being met? We have to look at what's missing. We have to focus on what's missing. And how can we turn this into a happy environment? If people have the support that they need to succeed in the classroom, if we have the right leadership, the right support, if we have the right coaching in place, and we can coach our staff, then that's going to carry over to our students. And when you see the staff and when you see how the students respond to that instruction, that's a big motivator. And also in the community, as I was walking through yesterday, what a rich history there is here. I remember one of the staff, they were telling me, you know, I used to wrestle in high school, and they were saying, We have over 20 state champions in wrestling. Oh my goodness, that is huge. So we need to make sure students have that experience. With both this, I met with both student body governments yesterday, and we talked about Battle of the Books, Academic Bowl. We also, with the blind and visually impaired, we talked about Goal Ball. We talked about Cane Quest. And they're like, oh yeah, we're involved. They're involved in Braille competitions. And that's what I want to see, because I'm a competitor. That's my nature. I love sports and I love to root for my school. I've always supported my athletics, the after school programs. That's what I want to see here. And I want to see the ripple effect, and it will happen. If we have people who are happy, students who are happy, that will carry over to their family. And then all of a sudden we'll be like, oh, that place is so great. And that's what I want to see here happen here at this school.
Okay, this question comes from Susie O'Hara. And the question is, for many years, the deaf program has been relatively isolated from other schools. The staff and students need interaction with other schools. And how will you improve upon that? And how will you attract qualified staff that have strong backgrounds in deaf education?
I'm going to address the second part first, recruiting staff, because it will apply to both programs. How do we recruit TVIs and teachers of the deaf and teachers of the visually impaired? How do we recruit and get those people in here? As I mentioned yesterday, and one thing that I will keep going back to is, if you have a well and it runs dry, what do? Do you just keep on digging? What do? You dig a new well, right? Yeah, so you have to get a new pipeline to get water. And it's the same thing with staff. When we're recruiting, the lack of educators is a serious thing, and it impacts both programs. There are not enough teachers, but that is a U.S. problem in deaf and blind education. So we have to go to graduate programs. We have to recruit. We have to utilize these resources for teachers of the deaf, for example. Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. In my time when I was in graduate school, we had about 30 graduate students, 30 in deaf education. Last year, when I visited, there were 8. Now, there's about 40 deaf schools in the U.S. So those 40 deaf schools are competing for those 8 teachers. Can you imagine if we had 2 teachers retire? We had to fill 2 vacancies. So that means us, New Mexico, Utah, Kansas, Iowa, all these surrounding areas that are in states that are near us, we're all competing for those same 8 grad students. We have to build and establish a pipeline. We have to build the program throughout the state. We have to bring them here. How do we do that? Through internships, through experiences. Make them feel this campus. Let them teach the blind here. Let them teach the deaf here and say, man, I want to be here. Let them build. We need to build relationships with universities. It could be Gallaudet, it could be RIT, but also the local colleges, UCCS. I want to build a rapport with Pikes Peak State College, the program that they have here. That would be fantastic for our students. Pikes Peak State has programs that you can take in high school. Students graduate high school with their associate's degree, and I really want to encourage that, because then those students could become teachers someday. All right, that's the second part. Can I get the first part again, please?
Sure. The first part of the program is that the school, it talks about the isolation of the school.
Okay. So I just mentioned a few deaf schools: Kansas, Iowa, Utah. I'm wondering about the relationship with those schools. What's it like? Because right now I really don't know. So I'd have to reach out. I have to reach out in the community, and I have to figure out, what's working statewide. I was in the gym yesterday and I saw the Road Runner. It's the New Mexico mascot, and we used to play them. And so I got to figure out what happened. Why did that experience go away? And how can we partner with them again? But not just with the deaf school, with the blind school as well. There are blind schools. There's a blind school in Utah. There's a program in Montana. There's another program in Arizona. Why are we not competing? Why are we not cooperating, collaborating? That'd be fantastic. If we could set up our own Cane Quest and Braille competition with them and not just be limited to the programs that are provided by the National Federation of the Blind, the NFB. And so I was thinking about a lot of these deaf schools have blind programs as well.
Okay, this question is a bit long. It has to do with accountability. So the community is motivated and values personally and professionally. Can you provide examples of how you have demonstrated accountability in your previous roles? And more importantly, how do you ensure a culture of accountability among your team? And how do you handle situations where accountability may be lacking?
I'm going to give you an example of something that's going on right now. It started last year. Our school in Massachusetts is really struggling with numbers. I mean, just like y'all are. We've had a decline in enrollment as well. I've been working with my team, the superintendent-led team, to develop a census development plan with 6 different domains. And they're going to focus on different parts. Partnership with the LEA, the local school districts, partnering with the families. These are just some examples. When we're working on developing the census plan, I noticed that some of the teams at school weren't doing their job. They were not meeting expectations. And so we had to ask them to come in for a sit down and say, listen, these are the things we need you to do. We need to show accountability. And I believe if the staff is not able to meet that, okay, well, we'll give them support. It's important to support them rather than make them feel less than. You're not meeting your expectations, so you're not completing the curriculum. Okay, well, how can I support you in that? That's the kind of support we need to provide for our staff. If our staff feels they're supported, they will be successful. And that relates to accountability because I always hold myself accountable first. If I don't hold myself accountable, then I can't hold my leadership team accountable in a likewise manner. And then how can they in turn support their staff? And how can that staff support their people?
Okay, this is the last question.
Whew, thank goodness.
So our campus needs to build morale, trust, and equity and unity. What are 3 ideas that you have to start this work to support morale, trust, and unity?
In my slides, I mentioned a few of these already. Community partnership, listening, hearing out the alumni association, listening and supporting the families. We want to provide that space. We want to be visible. I want to be there and available for everyone. I want to show that we lead by example. I want to be around talking with people, engaging, checking in with the students, involved with their activities, rooting for their sports and their competitions. Now, if it's academic bowl, you might see me trying to pitch in and answer some myself, but I really want to elevate the feeling, the sense of morale here. And I think that that can happen if we start at the top and then it trickles down to the staff, That enthusiasm will carry over to the family, to the alumni. I mean, you already have something to look forward to with the 150-year anniversary. That's something big to look forward to. And so let's make that our jump off, our launch point to inspire the community from here on out. And so I think that was 3 in 1. You know, I don't have long, so I just want to say again, thank you everyone in the community for coming here to hear me speak. Thank you for meeting me. Very hopeful. I wish the board the best of luck with their decision, and thank you.
Diane. Yeah, I can't.
Is that okay? 2 days, all day long, lots of thinking, lots of watching, lots of support and interviews. Wow. Wow. And we've got great qualified candidates, right? It's been inspiring to be here with all of you. And what's next for you is to provide feedback to the board. We need your feedback. So please provide that feedback. Get on the link, get on the site. Fill it out. Fill out the form. Each person has for each candidate has a place for you to fill out your feedback. And do you know who's going to be picking the next superintendent? It will be the board's decision. And do you all know when it's happening? It is happening on Monday. Wow. So it is happening next week, Monday, January 29th. I believe at 4 o'clock. Is that right? 4 o'clock? So the board meeting is not live in person. It will be online. You're able to watch on Zoom.
CSDB
On the CSDB website. Friday morning, the forms are due by 8 a.m. So again, Friday morning at 8 a.m. We will then close it down. We'll collect all of that feedback, consolidate it, and get it sent out and ready for the board. So thank you all. We recognize the hard work and the support that you've given. And so thank you to the interpreters. Thank you to the audio descriptors. Everybody, wonderful job. Thank you all so much. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. We will see you on Monday, and we'll see what the board decision is.